Hey YouTube, Tech Freckle here. In today's video, we're going to go over learning HTML structure, and let's get started. Preparing for HTML. Now that we've learned about some of the most common HTML elements, it's time to learn how to set up an HTML file. HTML files require certain elements to set up the document properly. We can let web browsers know that we are using HTML by starting our document with a document type declaration. The declaration looks like this. Let's add this because we know we're going to need it later. This declaration is an instruction and it must be the first line of code in your HTML document. It tells the browser what type of document to expect along with what version of HTML is being used in the document. For now, the browser will correctly assume that the HTML in doctype HTML is referring to HTML5 as it is the current standard. In the future, however, a new standard will override HTML5. To make sure your document is forever interpreted correctly, always include doctype HTML at the beginning of your HTML documents. Lastly, HTML code is always saved in a file with an HTML extension. Okay, so we've added it at the very first line. Boom. The HTML tag. Doctype HTML declaration provides the browser with two pieces of information, the type of document and the HTML version to expect, but doesn't actually add any HTML structure or content. To create HTML structure and content, we must add opening and closing HTML tags after declaring doctype. Okay, so we'll add those. Anything between the opening and closing tags will be interpreted as HTML code. Without these tags, it's possible that browsers would incorrectly interpret your HTML code. So we've added the opening and closing, we'll run it, and we are good. The head. So far, you've done two things to set up the file properly. Declared to the browser that your code is HTML, added the HTML element that will contain the rest of your code. We've added these elements to the Brown Bears page you previously created. Now let's also give the browser some information about the page itself. We can do this by adding a head element. Remember the body tag? The head element is part of the HTML metaphor. It goes above our body element. Okay, the head element contains the metadata for a web page. Metadata is important or is information about the page that isn't displayed directly on the web page. Unlike the information inside of the body tag, the metadata in the head is information about the page itself. You'll see an example of this in the next exercise. The opening and closing head tags typically appear as the first item after your HTML tag. So we'll copy that, put it right there. Didn't want to put that in. Page titles. What kind of metadata about the web page can the head element contain? If you navigate to Codecademy catalog and look at the top of your browser, you'll notice the words All Courses and Tutorials Codecademy, which is the title of the web page. A browser's tab displays the title specified in the title tag. The title tag is always inside of the head. Okay. So if we were to open a file containing the HTML code in the example above, the browser would display the words My Coding Journal in the title bar or in the tab's title. So it's already indented. So we'll go to the title element, brown. Oh, boom. Fortunately, you won't be able to see the title of your page. And the small browser to the right will show you what it looks like in the next exercise. Okay, so that's right. Next. Boom. Okay. Where does the title appear? Good work. Unfortunately, the browser panel used by Codecademy environment does not have a title bar, so the brown bear title you wrote in the previous exercise will not be displayed. Outside of the Codecademy environment, however, your title would appear as depicted in the diagram to the right. So far, we have learned about doctype HTML, the declaration specifying the version of HTML for the browser, the HTML tags that enclose all of your HTML code, the head tag that contains the metadata of a web page such as the title. Next, you'll learn about new types of elements that go inside the body. Okay. Linking to other web pages. One of the most powerful aspects of HTML and the internet is the ability to link to other web pages. You can add links to a web page by adding an anchor element, A, and including the text of the link between the opening and closing tags. This is a link to Wikipedia. Okay, wait a minute. Technically, the link is the example and the example above is incomplete. How exactly is the link above supposed to work if there's no URL that will lead users to the actual Wikipedia page? The anchor element in the example above is incomplete without the href attribute. The attribute stands for hypertext reference and is used to link a path or the address to where a file is located, whether it is on your computer or another location. The path provided to the href attribute are often URLs, okay? In the example above, the href attribute has been set to the value of URL. Wikipedia, the example now shows the correct use of an anchor element. When reading the technical documentation, you may come across the term hyperlink. Not to worry, this is simply the technical term for link. These terms are often used interchangeably. So after the first paragraph, right above the heading that says species, so right here, add a link that says learn more. All right, so oops. Learn more. No URL just yet. Okay. And then we want this. So tref. Gotta get rid of that space again. Learn more. Boom. There it is. And we got the Wikipedia page. Cool. Opening links in a new window. Have you ever clicked on a link and observed the resulting web page open in a new browser window? If so, you can thank the A element's target attribute. Okay, the target attribute specifies how a link should open. It's possible that one or more links on your web page link to an entirely different website. In that case, you may want users to read the linked website, but hope that they return to your web page. This is exactly when the target attribute is useful. For a link to open in a new window, the target attribute requires a value of blank. The target attribute can be added directly to the opening tag of the anchor element, just like the href attribute. Target blank. Okay, in the above, setting the target attribute to blank instructs the browser to open the relevant Wikipedia page in a new window. In this exercise, we've used the terminology open in a new window. It's likely that you're using a modern browser that opens up websites in new tabs rather than new windows. Before the advent of browsing with tabs, additional browser windows had to be opened to view more websites. The target blank attribute, when used in modern browsers, will open new websites in a new tab. Okay, cool. In the link that reads learn more, boom, at the target, set equal to blank. Oh, that doesn't, oh, it does it in a new tab. Cool. I was fully expecting a new tab in here, but hey, next. Linking to relative page. Thus far, you've learned how to create or how to link to external web pages. Many sites also link to internal web pages like home, about, and contact. Before we learn how to link between internal pages, let's establish where our files are stored. When making multi-page static websites, web developers often store HTML files in the root directory or a main folder where all the files for the project are stored. As the size of the projects you create grows, you may use additional folders within the main project folder to organize your code. So project folder, about, contact, index. Looks like we have an about me file as well here. The example above shows 3 different files: about, contact, index, in one folder. HTML files are often stored in the same folder as shown in the example above. If the browser is currently displaying index.html, it also knows that about and contact are in the same folder. Because the files are stored in the same folder, we can link web pages together using a relative path. Okay, so /. In this example, the A tag is used with a relative path to link from the current HTML file to the contact HTML file in the same folder. On the web page, contact will appear as a link. A relative path is a file name that shows the path to a local file, a file on the same website, such as index, versus an absolute path, a full URL. Okay. Stored in a different folder. Tells the browser to look for the file in the current folder. Okay, so directly below the opening body tag, within the index HTML, add an anchor tag that links to the index HTML. So what does it want? It wants an anchor tag. The link should say brown bear. So it wants this, and its reference is index.html. Assuming that's correct. Yeah, so this is the main page. Under the link to index.html, add an anchor tag that links to the about me using relative path. Okay, so this one we want it to be about me HTML. What was that? And what is this one supposed to say about me? Okay. Linking at will. You've probably visited websites where not all links are made up of text. Maybe the links you clicked on were images or some other form of content. So far, we've added links that were made up of only text, like the following. Text-only links, however, would significantly decrease your flexibility as a web developer. Thankfully, HTML allows you to turn nearly any element into a link by wrapping that element with an anchor element. With this technique, it's possible to turn images into links by simply wrapping the image element with an anchor element. In the example above, an image of a prickly bear has been turned into a link by wrapping the outside of the image element with an anchor element. Okay, so the index, transfer the image on your page into a link by wrapping the image element with an anchor element. So where is ours? We have the image here, so we're going to wrap it in an anchor, and then we're going to put a reference to the URL here. And we also have to target to a new page. So it'll be underscore blank. Okay. Oh, and look at that. It's clickable. Nice. Linking to the same page. At this point, we have all the content we want on our page. Since we have so much content, it doesn't all fit on the screen. How do we make it easier for user to jump to different portions of our page? When users visit our site, we want them to be able to click a link and have the page automatically scroll to a specific section. In order to link to a target on the same page, we must give the target an ID attribute and a unique value like this. PID equals top. This is the top of the page. H1 ID bottom. This is the bottom. This example, the P element is assigned an ID of top and the H1 element is assigned bottom. An ID can be added to most elements on a page. An ID should be descriptive to make it easier to remember the purpose of a link. The target link is a string containing the hashtag character and the target's ID. Ahref bottom. Okay. In the example above, the links to the PID top and the H1 ID bottom are embedded in an ordered list. These links appear in the browser as a numbered list of links. An ID is especially helpful for organizing content belonging to a div. Okay. Under the H1 element that says the brown bear, boom, create an unordered list. Boom. Okay. We want 3 list items here. So introduction. Yeah. Okay. And we're going to wrap the text of each list item in an unordered list. Okay, sorry. Wrap the text of each list item in the unordered list in an anchor element. Each anchor tag should link to the corresponding div on the page. The A element that contains the text introduction links to introduction. And we already have those IDs set. Okay, so we need to wrap this. To Oops. Screwed that up massively. Okay, so this A href boom. Yeah, it's deleting the stuff. So media, you put a hashtag in there as well, and then we're gonna close this and put media back in. And that looks right now. Habitat media. Okay, doesn't work because it's not a big enough page, but it's good enough for now. White space. The rest of this lesson will focus on some tools developers use to make code easier to interpret. As the code in an HTML file grows, it becomes increasingly difficult to keep track of how elements are related. Programmers use two tools to visualize the relationship between elements, white space and indentation. Both tools take advantage of the fact that the position of elements in a browser is independent of the amount of white space or indentation in the index file. For example, if you wanted to increase the space between two paragraphs on your web page, you would not be able to accomplish this by adding space between the paragraph elements in the index file. The browser ignores white space in HTML files when it renders a web page, so it can be used as a tool to make code easier to read and follow. What makes the example below difficult to read? Okay, well, it's because everything's in line. You have to read the entire line to know what elements are present. Compare the example below to this, or above to this. Okay. The example is easy to read because each element is on its own line, while the first example required you to read the entire line of code to identify the elements. This example makes it easy to identify body tag in two paragraphs. A browser renders both examples the same way, paragraph 1, paragraph 2. Okay. In the next exercise, you'll learn how to use indentation to help visualize nested elements. Okay. Use white spaces to make the code more readable by putting each element on its own line. Okay, so we have an H1 tag, we have a paragraph tag, pulling the body back out, and boom. Rock on. Indentation. The second tool web developers use to make the structure of code easier to read is indentation. The spaces are inserted using the space and tab bars on your keyboard. The World Wide Web Consortium, or W3C, is responsible for maintaining the style standards of HTML. At the time of writing, the W3C recommends 2 spaces of indentation when writing HTML code. Although your code will work without exactly 2 spaces, this standard is followed by the majority of professional web developers. Indentation is used to easily virtualize which elements are nested within other elements. In the example above, paragraph 1 and the div tag are nested inside of the body tag. So they are indented 2 spaces. The paragraph 2 element is nested inside the div tag, so it is intended as an additional 2 spaces. So indent the code and index to match the W3 standards. 1, 2. 1, 2. Interesting. See, I guess this would go in like that, because this is a child of that. That's also a child of the body, and then this is grandchild to the body. But comments. HTML files also allow you to add comments to your code. Comments begin with this and with that. Any characters in between will be ignored by your browser. Okay. Include comments in your code. It's helpful for many reasons. They help you and others understand your code if you decide to come back and review it at a much later date. They allow you to experiment with new code without having to delete old code. Okay. In this example, the comment is used to denote the following text makes up a particular section of the page. Test code. Okay. In the example above, a valid HTML element, a paragraph element, has been commented out. This practice is useful when there's code you want to experiment or return to in the future. Add a comment to the index file. All right. Let's just add it anywhere. Boom. HTML tags. You now know all of the basic elements and setup you need to structure an HTML page and add different types of content with the help of CSS. Very soon you'll be creating beautiful websites. While some tags have a very specific purpose, such as image and video tags, most tags are used to describe the content that they surround, which helps us modify and style our content later. There are seemingly infinite numbers of tags to use, many more than we've taught. Knowing when to use each one is based on how you want to describe the content of your HTML. Descriptive, well-chosen tags are one key to high-quality web development. A full list of available HTML tags can be found in Mozilla documentation. Let's review what you've learned this lesson. Doc-type HTML declaration should always be the first line of code in your HTML files. This lets the browser know what version of HTML to expect. HTML element will contain all of your HTML code. Information about the web page, like the title, belongs within the head of the page. You can add a title to your web page by using the title element inside of the head. A web page's title appears in a browser's tab. Anchor tags are used to link to internal pages, external pages, or content on the same page. You can create sections on a web page and jump to them by using A tags and adding IDs to the elements you wish to jump to. White space between HTML elements helps make code easier to read while not changing how elements appear in the browser. Indentation also helps make code easier to read and makes parent-child relationships visible. Comments are written in HTML using the following syntax. Comment. Take some time to edit the workspace you created and observe how it changes. All right, we've completed the lesson. Let's see, is there a quiz? Yes, there is. Which of the following is the current HTML standard? HTML5. Come on. Okay, delayed. Why should the document type declaration be included in HTML documents? Standard. Which of the following tags instructs the browser to expect a well-formatted doc-type HTML? Boom. HTML code must be nested within which of the following tags? HTML. Which of the following elements contains a web page's metadata? The head. The following HTML code should only exist within each of the following tags. It's the head tag. What is the purpose of indentation in white space? Make it more readable. Following code creates a link to another page. With the following will cause the page to open in a new browser. We have to have a target with attributes set to blank. Contents of the title tag will appear where in a modern browser? It's going to be in the tab, the browser's tab. There we go. Following code is supposed to create a link to another web page, but it fails to do so. Why? Because there's no href. Boom. Which of the following is the correct syntax for a comment in HTML? It's this one. Which of the following would create a link to local HTML file called about me? Since it's a local file, it's going to be like this. And yeah, this is the only one that makes sense because this is a weird closing tag. Introduction to the Mozilla Developer Network. Learn how to search and use the Mozilla Developer Network documentation. Introduction, the Mozilla Developer Network. When learning a topic, it's often helpful to go straight to the source to read more from the original documentation. For web development, one of the most well-known names in the industry is the Mozilla Developer Network, or MDN for short. This open source network of documentation and tools has information about a wide variety of topics related to web development, including HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. MDN originally started with documentation for web browsers, but has grown to cover a wide variety of web-related topics over the years. Today, companies like Microsoft and Google actively support MDN as the central source of information about technology. While reading or using MDN documentation is required to complete Codecademy lessons or projects, it's an important resource for you to be aware of as you start to put your skills to practical use by working on projects off of Codecademy. Knowing where to go for more information will be essential to your growth and success as a developer. This article will cover how to search for MDN articles, identifying which sections relate to what you're looking for. The examples provided will focus on HTML syntax, but this article will give you a general idea of how to use MDN documentation. Searching for MDN articles. To find documentation related to a topic you're looking for, go to the home page and find the search bar in the upper right-hand corner of the page. Type in the topic you're searching for in the search bar, press enter to display a list of results. The more specific the terms used to search, the more likely you'll get relevant results. In this example, we'll look for documentation related to the HTML section, heading, elements, syntax. Choose a result and you'll be taken to a page displaying more detailed information about the topic. The example here uses the article titled H1 to H6, the HTML section, heading, elements. Okay. MDN article sections. MDN articles usually divide content into separate sections. The types of sections will vary depending on the topic, but you'll find the following sections in HTML documentation: definition and demo, attributes, usage notes, examples, accessibility concerns, specifications, browser compatibility, related topics. Except for the related topics sidebar, you can jump to the relevant section you want to look at by clicking on the link in the menu on this page located at the top of the page. Each of these sections will be covered, starting with those that should provide you with immediate help with syntax, followed by the sections that give more general information about HTML. One thing to note before continuing is that it is not necessary to read through every section in an article or to understand all the content in it. Feel free to pick and choose sections to look at that make the most sense to you. There will always be more information and documentation than is necessary for what you need to do at any one time. Definition and demo. At the top of the MDN article, you'll see a written definition of the article's subject. Below the definition, you will find a demo, an interactive example. Here, the demo displays a variety of heading elements showing the correct syntax. These demos allow you to run the example code given to you and see the immediate results. You can also interact with the example code, including making changes to it, allowing you to learn how the code works by testing code and observing the result. The demo can be especially helpful if you prefer to learn by reading through the code and playing with it rather than a written description. It's pretty cool. Attributes. Below the definition and demo is attributes. This section describes any attributes specific to the HTML element. In this case, there are none except for global attributes like class or ID that are used on all HTML elements. These elements only include the global attributes. The align attribute is obsolete. Don't use it. Okay. Usage notes. The section titled Usage Notes gives helpful tips, including best practices that will help your website follow certain standards. Section is particularly useful when working with unfamiliar syntax and can help you avoid common mistakes. If any of the notes are unclear, the examples in the next section should show code snippets that follow the recommendations in the usage notes. Examples. The section provides you with even more examples. However, unlike the interactive demo you saw at the top of the page, you won't be able to change the code directly in this section. The examples provide syntactically correct uses of HTML elements for you to model your code on, or as well as the result of running these examples. If the written definition and demo don't provide clear guidance on what an article subject is or how to use it, looking at the examples in this section can be helpful. Like the written context or content, it is not necessary to understand every example shown or read through every example. Supporting sections. Following sections aren't essentials to learning syntax, but they provide more detailed information about how to best and correctly use the code shown in the previous sections. As mentioned earlier, there will always be more information contained in documentation than you need. However, going through these sections can help enlarge your knowledge of a given topic or give some insight into how or why a certain web technology was created. Accessibility concerns. The accessibility concerns section goes over any issues that might impact accessibility or how easily people can use your website when implementing the code or web technology shown in the article. Similar to the usage notes, the accessibility concerns section covers best practices that should be followed so that anyone visiting your website can use it. That's cool. Specifications. Specifications section provides links to resources that discuss the article's topic in more detail. This article section goes into the design of these HTML elements, what their purpose is, and how they should function. Browser compatibility. This section displays information about which web browsers can support or properly display the HTML element discussed in the article. The information found here is similar to the information you would find on a website. Can I use, although less detailed. Related topics. There are two sections of this article that will show you additional related topics. The section C, also in the sidebar under related topics, both provide linked articles that discuss topics related to the subject of the current article. Okay. Recap. In this article, you learn how to search on MDM, what sections provide practical help with syntax and style, where you can interact with examples, what sections have more information about a topic, including terminology, more complex context and uses. Introducing you to MDN documentation early on provides you with an additional resource for looking up syntax and familiarizes you with one of the most important sources of documentation about web technologies. Also gives you the resources to enrich and extend your knowledge of a topic or subject beyond a beginner level. So when you're stuck on something or you just want to learn a little more, try reading the documentation and you might just find what you're looking for. All right. Next article. HTML on MDN web docs. Debugging. All right, learn about HTML debugging. In this article, you learn about HTML debugging through the documentation on the Mozilla Developer Network. This is helpful if you'd like to understand how to fix common errors that developers make while constructing HTML. After you finish reading the article, return to this page and complete the following assessments. Let's just wing it. What is the error within this HTML snippet? Unordered list. Strong. There's no strong. Should be a space. I imagine that doesn't matter. The strong element needs closing tag. Why should a front-end developer be vigilant with HTML being permissive code? Boom. Yay. Errors in other languages will stop program from launching, but browser will still try to interpret HTML even if the flaw in syntax, which may cause some unexpected behavior. All right. So this looks to be a project. I'm going to end the video here and we'll do this project in the next one. See you there.